Rastafari, blessed love and light family, hope everybody is well. Today I want to briefly reason upon this beautiful book, Haile Selassie's Ethiopia, Volume 1, The Rise of the Priestly Warrior Kings. Yeah, so as the title says, The Rise of the Priestly Warrior Kings, this book is dealing with many of the warrior kings, the priestly warrior kings, because in Ethiopia, a king is like a priest and a king at the same time is a warrior. Yeah, so Ethiopia is an ancient mystical land, and obviously the politics of the land are quite complicated, and even as we see today, they're trying to divide and conquer the people along tribal lines. Yeah, and this is why it's so important to know our history, because this book has opened my eyes to a lot of things. One thing that may be a bit controversial, let me know your thoughts. If I say something wrong, correct me. But I know there's a lot of, especially in southern region, there's a lot of hatred or a lot of negative feeling towards Emperor Menelik II, because they say that, you know, he came to conquer the south and everything like that. But we have to check the full story, the bigger picture, because a lot of people say, you know, like they depict him as a bloodthirsty animal who just came to conquer the south, thirsty for blood. That's not the case. As this book explains, and as history explains, at that time Europe was coming for Ethiopia. Ethiopia was the only free country left in Africa. So Menelik, following on from Emperor Tedros and Emperor Johannes IV, yeah, Menelik had a task, which was to unify all of the kingdoms, because Ethiopia at that time was many kingdoms. So Menelik had to unify all of these kingdoms. Yes, Lion. Menelik had to unify all of these kingdoms under one empire, in order to be so united that when the Europeans come to colonize them, there's no chance. Yeah. So obviously some of these smaller kingdoms would have said no to Emperor Menelik, not understanding the bigger picture, not understanding what was coming. Because obviously Ras Mekonnen, the right-hand man of Menelik, he's been to Europe, he's been outside, he's seen parts of the world, he knows Wagwan. And there will be some people that don't know the threat. So they would have said to Menelik, no, you know what I mean? We're not going to obey you. And they would have put up a fight. So obviously there were battles that ensued. And so what I want to say is we have to see the bigger picture. So I'm not here to defend anyone or say anyone is right and wrong, but I'm here to say we have to look at the bigger picture. Instead of saying, and holding grudge and all this, we have to see the real reason why Ethiopia had to become one huge empire in that time to resist colonialism successfully, which it did twice, more than twice, I'm sure. So this book is very interesting and insightful, highly insightful, Haile Selassie, we can say. The author is Kwasi Bonsu Dejazmatch Kwasi. Big up that I self, give thanks for the works. You know what I mean? And I want to say big up because the research that man has obviously conducted to put this book together, like it must have been just hours and even years of research to get all of the information. And I love the way this book is written, because it's a history book, it's a historical book. But the way that it is written, it's not just like you're reading a history book, just facts and bullet points, and it never gets boring. The way the book is written is full of action. The way that man is telling the story, it's like an epic, a real epic scale, because the story itself is epic. So it needs to be told in this way. So this way I give thanks to the author right now. And I believe it is Bookmanexpress who is behind the publishing. So we give thanks for books such as these that allow ones to dig deeper, you know what I mean? Because it's highly educational, and at the same time, I don't want to say entertaining because that's not the word. Edutaining is not even the right word, but highly educational and what's the word now? What's that word, fam? Drop your words in the comments. There's a word, captivating. Like you don't want to put it down. And like I've had this book a couple years now. It's taken me time to read, because I used to read so much more, but especially I read when I'm outside. When I'm at home, I find it hard to concentrate. So recently I just been trotting with my book. Anytime I have time, we just sit down. And today I just spent about 2 hours reading all about Yeshimabet Ali, the mother of His Imperial Majesty, who you must know comes from Islamic lineage. Her family were Muslim, as were the family of Empress Menen. Now obviously Yeshimabet had converted when she married Ras Mekonnen. So there's a lot of things. She also had a Romo lineage, yeah? So there's a lot of things when people want to divide up Ethiopia and say this and that, and Christian and Muslim and Amhara, Tigray, Roma. But if we look at the history, there's so much crossover and manamen, yeah? I don't think it's easy to just divide and say this. Because if we look at like His Majesty, for example, he had Oromo, Amhara, Tigray blood, all kind of blood, you know what I mean? He had Orthodox Christianity, but he also have lineage of Muslim, you know what I mean? So, unity and the net, yeah? And the net is the thing, and it's all very mystical. It's all very mystical how His Majesty came to the throne, and that's where this book actually ends, I believe. Not even with His Majesty on the throne, but with the birth of His Majesty, because as it says, this is volume 1. So I look forward to volume 2, which I'm sure is going to deal with, like, you know, some of the things that His Majesty had to then deal with, becoming governor of Hara, growing up with this responsibility on his shoulders, to become Ngus, to become Ngus in Agast, to become Emperor Haile Selassie, lijteferi Mekonnen. You know what I mean? What a journey for the triple crown, the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah. So it's very mystical, and as we know, His Majesty was prophesied, His Majesty's birth was prophesied. Yeshimabet had given miscarriage to 8 children, you know what I mean? So it was even rumored, would His Majesty even survive the birth? And it was prophesied by not only Orthodox priests but also sheikhs in Islam that His Majesty would be like a savior, like the savior of Ethiopia, and that he would unite Ethiopia and bring Ethiopia out of the Kifuken, the evil days, which this book tells you a lot about. And Ethiopia was in 4 years of drought. Like, this is an important thing. A lot of people talk about when His Majesty went to Jamaica, the rain fell, and and this is why Rasta believe. No, fam, it's so much deeper than that. And as a matter of fact, the rain didn't even fall. I recently found out it was raining, and when His Majesty came out of the sky, the sun came out and dried everybody off. But that's another story for another time. The point is, people think that is the only mystic thing. There are so many mystical things. Let's look at the birth of lijteferi, when there was 4 years of drought in Hara, Ethiopia, where it had not rained, where people were starving. And when His Majesty was born, lightning and thunder, 3 days of straight rainfall to wash the land. So this was already seen as a blessing. Okay, this child has been born. On top of the fact that his birth was already prophesied to be of great significance for the realm, for the country, for the nation, but also for the world. You know what I mean? So, very mystical things. Right now, chapter 27, the kingdom of Rome. You know what I mean? That's where we're on. We're on the last few chapters, finishing up with the birth and the new name. So I want to say, go check out this book. I'm sure a lot of ones and ones in the last couple of years will have been checking it out. The Lion of Judah in Africa, Churches in the Rock, Lalibela, Solomonic Restoration, Kebronigas. I love the little subtitles that man gives in each chapter. The Hebrews' African roots, you know what I mean? Africa and the Hebrews. Abraham and the Cushite connection, you know what I mean? Melchizedek's blessing of Abraham, Yeshua and Ethiopia, which falls right in the middle of the book, very mystical, you know what I mean? Dejazmatch Kwasi once again. The Tawahedo, the nature of Yeshua the Christ, the Kibat, the Soslidet, the Ras Mekonnen, chapter 30, you know what I mean? So very highly insightful book for those that wish to learn more about the history of Ethiopia, not only His Majesty's birth, but the history that came for years and years before that, like I say, from the time of like Imam Ahmad Gregn, you know what I mean, through to the kings of Shewa, and everything is detailed in a lot of detail in this book. Yeah, the royal families, who was married to who, what agreements were made, what diplomatic ties were tied and untied, you know what I mean? So highly insightful for those wishing to learn about the history of Ethiopia as a whole, the kingdoms, you know, I don't want to say the politics, but the state of affairs of the land in the ancient time up to the modern time. How, you know what I mean? How were things set for His Majesty to enter this realm? There was a lot of history that took place for this mystical moment. A lot of things, as we know, the Most High plan. Things will happen to line up things and things and things, to the point that from all these hundreds of years of history that the book goes through, to end at the birth of His Imperial Majesty, showing that all of these hundreds of years of events are somehow connected. Very mystical, yeah? That's why it's called Rise of the Priestly Warrior Kings, yeah? So we give thanks. Alright, I can read quickly. I can give you some from the blurb. It says, Haile Selassie's Ethiopia Volume 1 is a fascinating exploration of the Ethiopian royal history anchored by the birth story of Ethiopia's 225th ruler from the Solomonic line, His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie. The first of 7 planned volumes explores the Ethiopian history and conditions in 1892, the year that Haile Selassie was born, from a pan-African perspective. It outlines how his birth occurred in the midst of the European scramble for Africa, marking the end of an era and the dawn of a new beginning. Transporting the reader through time. I can testify to that. When you read this book, you feel like you're back in time, you're in ancient time. It's very visual, the way man writes. You visualize a lot of things, your ancient things, like in Ankoba. Like I've been blessed to visit Ankoba. Big up the Bridgerins and the Sistrins who were on that trip a couple years ago. You know what I mean? We was blessed to visit Ankoba, which is one of the ancient places of Menelik and Shewa. And so like when man is talking about Ankoba in the ancient time, you know, you can picture, because it's still the same. It's still the same, family. The anciency still remains in this ancient land here. So we give thanks. So it says, transporting the reader through time. This work gives a front row seat to the events that shaped not only Ethiopia but the world at large. Because it also deals with like the Berlin Conference, some of the things happening in Europe, you know what I mean, how they were, how Italy had taken Eritrea. Well, it wasn't even Eritrea at that time, but they had took part of Ethiopia that then became Eritrea. You know what I mean? And a little bit about the author. Kwesi Bonsu, also known as Dejazmatch or Ras Kwesi, is an entertainment attorney, author, recording and performing artist, Rastafari activist and entrepreneur, a graduate of both Howard University and Howard University School of Law. He is a passionate researcher and speaker on the subjects of Ethiopia and His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie's reign. So it's a well-researched book, you know what I mean? Written by a Bridgerin who has done a lot of research and is dealing with highly educational topics and things, you know what I mean? And he has put together this compilation. So may I give thanks, and I will give thanks for this book, this publication. Go get your hands on a copy. I think you can get it on Amazon worldwide. You can also get it, like if you're in America, you can get it from Bookmanexpress direct, or from Kwesi Bonsu himself direct to support the works even more. If you're international, check it on the Amazon. You know what I'm thinking? We need some copies in Ethiopia, but not only that, we need to translate this book into Amharic, because this is crucial information for this generation, especially, you know what I mean, we know that this new generation is so addicted to their phone and they don't want to read, especially not like a history book. So this book is written in a way that it will captivate the reader. So we're going to try and figure out how we can do that, because like I say, wise mind of His Majesty, we need to put that forward into Amharic again. Some of these books we want to translate into Amharic, so maybe that's a task that I as Roots Juice, we're going to try and take on, see what we can do. If we can get this book circulating, that would be a blessing. Haile Selassie's Ethiopia Volume 1, Rise of the Priestly Warrior Kings. Beautiful artwork as well, beautiful heart work, we can say. So get your hands on a copy, check it out. It's a beautiful book, it smells beautiful, you know what I mean? You know, say if you're a hardcore book fan, you know, say you have to smell the book, you know, one of the first things you do when you get a brand new book. I may have just loved holding this book. It's got a great vibe, flicking through the pages, just full of goodness and greatness. So we give thanks and praise for this book, family, Rise of the Priestly Warrior Kings. Go check it out. We're going to do some more videos, maybe where we go in depth on some of the chapters, investigating some of the things. The Battle of Gura, did you know about that one? What about the submission of Menelik? What about the Fool of a Legend? The General of Generals? Rasulullah? Lot of things, family, lot of things. Rasulullah and the defense of Zion. Rasulullah and the war of the two kings. Rasulullah and the Egyptians. You know what I mean? The kingdom of Shewa. You know what I mean? Ethiopia in 1892. The state of affairs. The kingdoms of Ethiopia. Sebastianos, big up. You know what I mean? Ras Negasi Kretos. You know what I mean? Dejazmatch Amha Jesus, Dejazmatch Abye, Wasen Seged as for Wasen. And you know, this book I also come to learn that, like, as for Wasen, Haile Selassie, like the children of His Majesty are mostly named after these ancient Shewan kings. We have here King Haile Selassie, the first king of Shewa. Yeah. So there's so many things. In describing Ankoba, he says, the metropolis of Shewa, spreading far and wide over a verdant mountain, presented a most singular, if not imposing, appearance. clusters of thatched houses of all sizes and shapes, resembling barns and haystacks, with small green enclosures and splinter palings, rising one above the other in very irregular tiers, adapt themselves to all the inequalities of the rugged surface. So this is actually coming from a British... Okay, yeah, I remember reading this part because I even read it aloud to myself in a British accent. Major W. Cornwallis Harris, a European traveller, second lieutenant in the engineers of the East India Company Bombay establishment from 1841 to 1843, led a diplomatic mission from Bombay to Ethiopia. And so this was actually his words describing Ankoba, and he goes on to say, connected, should I do it in the British accent? No, I shouldn't. Connected with each other by narrow lanes and hedgerows. These rude habitations, the residents of from 12 to 15,000 inhabitants, cover the entire mountainside to the extreme pinnacle. Hereon stands the palace of the Nagus, a most ungainly wooden palisades. You know what I mean? A most ungainly wooden palisades. They extend from the base of the summit and are interspersed with barred stockades, between which are profusely scattered the abodes of household slaves, with breweries, kitchens, cellars, storehouses, magazines, and granaries. You know what I mean? So family, the history of King Haile Mekonnen, like there's so much information in here. It talks about the Zemene Mesafing, the era of princes. Before Ethiopia was one under the empire, it was many princes and kings around the land, yeah, because Ethiopia is huge, don't forget family. Imagine uniting the whole of Ethiopia, like before the Berlin Conference, before the time of these borders, you know what I mean? Imagine how rich and vast the diversity of Ethiopia was and still is today, you know what I mean? Talks about the captive prince, talks about a great escape, how Menelik was raised by Tedros, but then escaped to take his throne of Shewa. Just so many things. Wollo, the birthplace of queens. A Wollo princess, Woizero Yeshimabet, the honorable, the father of Yeshimabet, the mother of Yeshimabet, as we mentioned moments ago. Emperor Tedros, the rise of Emperor Johannes, the outlaw Kassa, which is Tedros before he became Yeshua, the Christ rising, Emperor Ezana, the rise of Frumentius, the first bishop of Aksum, Saint Matthew in Ethiopia, the Ethiopian eunuch, Muslim Hara, Ras Mekonnen's activities during the Kifuken, the evil days, the Battle of Chilanko, the conquest of Hara, the early life of Ras Mekonnen. So many things, family. Yeah? And what I want to say is, like, man gives you straight away at the beginning in the foreword, he gives you his point of view. We know man is coming from a Pan-African and a Rastafari perspective. And I want to say, you know, there's nothing in this book that seemed too biased. It's all very factual and diplomatic in the way the stories are told. The Zagwe dynasty, Queen Yode, Emperor Lalibela, the fall of Aksum, the wealth of Aksum. So many things, yeah? So there's even a whole chapter on King Leopold and the terrible things he did in Belgium. In the Congo. In the name of Belgium. You know what I mean? And France is also guilty in there. We've got the Ras of Hara, King Solomon's blood, the rains end the evil days in Hara, post-Ottoman Empire, the real Prester Juan, the real Prester John family. Big up those who are, you know what I mean, know about the trail of Prester John. In search of the legend, talks about the Moors explorations, obviously transatlantic slave trade. It deals with the Arab slave trade, the Protestant Reformation, like real ancient things. Well, obviously transatlantic slave trade is not that ancient, family. That's modern history, let's not forget. They try to tell us. But when it deals with like the Protestant Reformation, the Arab slave trade, so it gives us a lot of context and information, like these worldwide events, how they were relevant to Ethiopia at that time, and how the state of affairs was internationally and nationally in Ethiopia in 1892 at the time of His Majesty's birth, yeah? The scramble for Africa, obviously the Berlin Conference. It talks a lot about Hara, and it gives us some of the history, the destruction of the Haile Selassie, the personal army of Ahmad Gregn, you know what I mean? And so there's just a lot of things. It talks about the Prophet Muhammad and his connections to Ethiopia. This is how far it goes back, this book, yeah? So I'm interested to see, like, this, the first volume deals with like hundreds of years of history, and there's going to be 6 more volumes to deal with things that His Majesty was dealing with. Yeah, so we look forward to those volumes. And once again, I want to say, like, I could go for hours into this book, but we're gonna do another video. Go check it out. Haile Selassie Ethiopia, Volume 1, Rise of the Priestly Warrior Kings, Kwesi Bonsu, Dejazmatch Kwasi. You know what I mean? Dejazmatch, of course, is a title. There's even I remember, I'm pretty sure it was this book. In the beginning, it's got a list of like all the titles, like Ras, Dejazmatch, what's it now? Shelaka. You know what I mean? Commander of 1,000. Yeah, Negusingast, obviously we know the King of Kings. We got Dejazmatch Fitawari, Kegnazmatch, Meridazmatch, Shalaka, Balambras, Basha, Wagshum, Lij, Agafari. All the titles are listed there. So highly informative. Me, I like the Shalaka, you know, the commander of 1,000, Rastafari. We give thanks. Yeah, children of the light, hold tight. We give thanks and praise once again. Rastafari, anyway, you there. Drop your comments if you've read the book. Let us know your thoughts. We're gonna do maybe a book review. We're gonna try and get an interview with the author. We're gonna, enough things we're gonna do. We're gonna do some videos on some of the particular chapters. And yeah, the main thing is get yourself a copy. Read up. It's a beautiful read. It's a captivating read. Brings the mind to life, brings the imagination to life, and brings the historical senses to life. So it's educated. It's a full package. It's a full package of works. What can I say? Rastafari. We give thanks once again for this works, family. Have a beautiful day wherever you are in the world. Give thanks for life. Stay safe, stay blessed. And go check out this book. I want to give you I should read just as we finish off. I should just read like a paragraph, a random paragraph, just to give you a little taste. You know what I mean? Let me read a little paragraph as we were talking about Menelik just then. Menelik II, the throne and the covenant of King David of Ethiopia, from chapter 26. Sensing the danger that surrounded Ethiopia when he took the throne, Emperor Menelik II quickly and aggressively moved to centralize the country. The internal politics of Ethiopia in 1892, as always, orbited around the realm's connection to the royal bloodline of King Solomon and the throne of King David. Menelik II made it clear throughout the realm that while the family of the deceased Johannes IV also claimed descent from King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, it was through the females of the dynasty. He asserted that his own claim to the throne was based on male descent from Emperor Legna Dengel. This was more in line with the prophecy and the divine promise given unto King David. It was based on the uninterrupted direct male lineage. Therefore, the claims of the house of Shewa were at least equal to those of the elder Gonda line of the dynasty. Just one little paragraph. And there is also, I even bookmarked it over here. Let me read you this paragraph, because this one is pretty nice as well. Alright, check this one now. Talking about a name for the baby boy Ras Mekonnen when he named the father. His Imperial Majesty, lijteferi. Yeah, family, imagine the battery died at that crucial moment, but I kept on talking for about 30 minutes. We were flowing right there. So I'm gonna right now try and remember what we were flowing on to seal up. But basically, I was reading this little paragraph that says, Ras Mekonnen was hoping that the Almighty would grant him a son with leadership qualities. As an educated man who travelled outside of Ethiopia's boundaries, he knew firsthand that times were changing. Acutely aware of the threat from Muslim jihadists, it was clear to him that the balance of power in the world had tipped in favour of Europe and her insatiable appetite for resources and territory. Ethiopia would need visionary leadership in order to retain her precious freedom and independence. And what I basically wanted to say is, like, this is just a glimpse. Like, one of the main characters, one of the main protagonists in this book is definitely Ras Mekonnen, because he's there from start to finish. And we get a real insight, like, you know, like I say, this book is very visual. You can visualize a lot of things that man is talking about. So we get a real insight into Ras Mekonnen as a man, as a character, as a person, because imagine, like, this shows us that at the time, not only he was expecting a child to be born, but would his child be born? Because his wife has already suffered 8 miscarriages. Now at the same time, he's got Orthodox priests and Muslim sheikhs both prophesizing him, telling him that this child will be born, and this child will be of great importance to Ethiopia. He will unite Ethiopia and bring Ethiopia out of the evil days, and he will be important to the whole world. And not only that, but he must be taken from his mother to be protected because when people find out he's been born, they will come for him. So he's got this in his mind. At the same time, man is governor of Harar, which is a Muslim city, and he himself is an Ethiopian Orthodox governor. So one of the reasons he became so loved and was so famous in Harar and in Ethiopia is because whenever he built a church, he built a mosque at the same time. And he was all about the equality between Muslim and Christian. Yeah. Now it's only this recent, these days, propaganda in the last few years that saw in 2020, I believe, a group destroy a famous statue of Ras Mekonnen in Harar, which I want to say really is a disgrace to Harar and a disgrace to Ethiopia and a disgrace to the great name of Ras Mekonnen. Because why was that statue there in the first place? Because he was loved, history shows. And you know what I mean? Man was all about equality and uniting Harar, a man of the people. You know what I mean? So at the same time as his child being born, he's got the governorship of Harar to worry about. At the same time, he knows that Europe, with their advanced technology and advanced weapons and all of that, are on their way to try and conquer Ethiopia, Abysinnia, yeah? So like, imagine how much things man has got on his mind, as a man, as a person, as a human. And this is what we have to realize when we think about these historical figures, and you know what I mean, and even like famous people, we can say like everyone is still a person. So we have to sometimes empathize and imagine what people are going through. So this gives us a nice insight into Ras Mekonnen and some of the things, just some of the things that were on his mind in that time. Yeah. So like I say, go check out the book, Haile Selassie, Ethiopia, Volume 1, Rise of the Priestly Warrior Kings. We're going to try and get an interview with the author, I can say. We've also got a whole list of interviews to do with enough elders here in Ethiopia, because obviously if you've been tuned in to our Zion Heights series in 2018, that series was all about, like, we had interviews with repatriated elders, we had interviews with pilgrims, like Rastafari pilgrims visiting the land, not even Rastafari pilgrims, just ones and ones from all walks of life, you know what I mean, ones that have been born and grown here in Ethiopia. And the idea was about repatriation, like why are people choosing to leave the West and repatriate to somewhere like Ethiopia? Why is Ethiopia being talked about as a spiritual holy, as the promised land? Because scripture says so, family, that's why. And you know, the series was about what does Ethiopia mean to you, to I and I, to ones and ones around the world, the significance of Ethiopia from different walks of life. So obviously the first series dealt with that, and with the last few years we should have been following up with the next series, because obviously, like I say, we have a whole list of repatriated ones and elders and ones and patriots and ones that we have to interview, right? So as you know, if you've been following the page, we've been enough works, we've been overloaded, we've been getting out enough works, but as we get out the old, we make space for the new. Yes, so we look forward to some more works coming soon, some brand new things. Keep it up to the channel. There's enough things as well. We have some unreleased interviews and all those things still to come, but slowly but surely catching up. Yeah, so we big up all the elders each and every time, and we big up all what can we say, the ones that have paved the way, and the ones that do such research and put out such teachings that ones can pick up upon it, further their research, further their education in certain things. Yeah, so go check out the book, family. Give thanks and praise for life. This is not the usual bookmark I use. Actually, in the next video we're going to get out the other bookmark. Somewhere along the way it's been switched, but it's okay. We have a royal bookmark, you know. I'm going to save that for the next video. So yeah, family, just give thanks and praise for life. Go check out the book. Stay safe, stay blessed wherever you are. Yeah, Zabula Maskan. We give thanks and praises. We say blessings and love in the name of His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie the First, and Her Imperial Majesty Empress Menelikii, divine balance, Alpha and Omega in this time. Yeah, Rise of the Priestly Warrior Kings, Volume 1, Dejazmatch Kwasi, Rastafari, love and life, family. See ya.